thank you all for coming here today. And thank you for agreeing to be part of our shared Green Deal network, knowledge network that we're creating. This is the launch of our project today, and it mightn't seem as if there has been any work done before this, but there's lots of work in the background. Trying to get people to be members of our knowledge network is what this day is about, and what Jim has been working so hard for the last few weeks. Can I just draw your attention, please, to the exits before we start? One to the right there, and one at the main at the back. And also, if you have mobile phones, it would be helpful if they were turned off, please. The meeting is being recorded. Gavin, our eighth helper here, our member of the call, is our tech man, and there's nothing he can't do. He's actually recording what goes on here today, so that members of the knowledge network who aren't available to be present here can see what is recorded on, I believe, a television channel. What's it called?
We have an own channel now. It's riverside.fm. So we have an own channel now on the internet.
So, and that's since yesterday. So you can imagine the amount of work that Gavin has put into arranging these things for us. So we'll be able to send you information about that in an email after this meeting. It's our great pleasure to welcome you all here today. And to each and every one of you, and especially those who have travelled great distances to be here, because it's not always easy to, close up the folder and say, okay, I'm off now to Louisburg, which could be 2 to 3 hours away. So thank you very much for the efforts that you've made to be here today. And thank you to our partners, Mayo County Council, without whom we wouldn't be here, because Mayo County Council actually contacted us to see if we would apply for this shared Green Deal project. And that had come about because we had been involved in environmental work over the past two years or so during COVID, after the decarbonisation competition that was started by Mayo County Council. And as a result of the work that we did in the various areas of microgeneration of electricity, energy awareness, biodiversity and native woodlands, food production, local food production and circular economy. Because of all of that, we were put forward for the Coherence Award, which we were very glad to accept. And we thought, this is great. We've got an award, we're acknowledged for doing some little bit for our environment. And then after our, I think we spent about 3 days, isn't that, putting together our application for the shared Green Deal. And at the end, we contacted Laura, who's not here today, but Lorna is here representing the County Council, and thank you, Lorna. And Orla McEntire from SEAI, and Belmullet, is it? Yeah. Belmullet. So between the two of them, the experts, we got the meaty substance to put numbers from the census on how many houses, the ages of the houses, the conditions of the houses, etc., which were crucial to our report that went in, or our application. And little did we know, but after a few weeks, we heard that we had been selected as one of the groups to participate in this study, which is going to happen throughout Europe. So to give you an example, there were 350 applications for this particular renovations study, and we were lucky to be able to get it. Now, Richard will tell us more about this particular project and the details and the ins and outs of it. So I'm not going to go into that further at the moment. But what I want to say is thank you to the professionals who are here today, who have life experience and expertise that we hope you'll be able to share with us. The idea is that those who have knowledge will share it with those who haven't. And thank you to the non-professionals for your experience, and you're equally as important in this project, because the aim of the project is to be able to create a framework which will create incentives for people to renovate their homes, no matter what your income. So the needs of the home will depend on the needs of those who live in them. So for that reason, we're very grateful to our local people who have signed up with us, who have been involved with us for the last while, and are eager to upgrade their homes or have done so, and know the difficulties that are there that stop people from doing it. So the EU want to put things in place in the future to be able to have everyone's home upgraded in the future. So today's proceedings, we ask each speaker to spend about 10 minutes. And then afterwards, if there are any questions, we'll have a few moments for the questions. We'll start with Lorna and Dennehy from Mayo County Council, and then that will be followed by Jim Cambell and Richard Mannion, both from Paul, and Damien McEntire from Superior Solutions. Where are you, Damien? Thank you. And also Gavin from SEAI. And at 4:30, we hope that this part of the session will be over, and we open the hall to anyone who wishes to join us from the general public. Now, maybe nobody might appear, so we can all just share, and chat, whatever. So we would hope to be finished here between 5:30 and 6, depending on how many people come in. So thank you all very much for coming. And I now hand you over to Lorna from Mayo County Council.
Hello, very well doing. I just wanted to preface today by saying I'm good because I cheered a bit too much for Mayo at the weekend, so please bear with me. So just to say, my name is Lorna Dennehy. I'm the Community Climate Action Officer in the Mayo County Council. I have been in the council on the climate action team in the council coming up to 2 years now, and I only recently became Community Climate Action Officer, so I'm going to be kind of more the face that gets the communities get from now on. But I'm sure a lot of people know Laura Dixon, who is our fearless leader who can't be here today, and she actually is presenting to the full council tomorrow, so she's prepared for that. But I suppose she was integral to working on this with these folks, and she's so supportive. So she sends her apologies for not being here today. So I suppose my role, like I said, is working with communities, and as well, I'm going to be working on the Community Climate Action Fund, which is upcoming. It's been upcoming for a while, but you'll hear when it actually does come out. But that's going to be my main body of work. So I'm going to be working on that, and then do all the lovely community work as well, which I'm looking to get sandwiches with tea. So I suppose I'm going to talk about the motivations for Mayo County Council for being a partner in this project with Call. And I suppose we need to look at the overall overarching context of here in Ireland under our Climate Action and Low Carbon Development Plan, or Act, should I say, we have to reduce our emissions by 51% by 2030, which is the greater picture of what we have to do. And then climate neutral and resilient by 2050. And as a local authority, we now are tasked with preparing a local authority climate action plan, which will detail how Mayo County Council are going to proceed with addressing our emissions and the county's emissions. And I suppose we need to look at that when we're looking at any work we do. And the thing is, Mayo County Council, we have full accountability for our own emissions, and that means our public lighting, our public housing, our social housing, our public buildings, our fleet, to name a few. And that's what we have full accountability for, that we are directly responsible for. That actually only amounts to less than 1% of Mayo County emissions. So then how are we involved in the other 99%? And I suppose it's projects like this, it's experiments like this, and that's our motivation to be involved with this. So I suppose we work on influencing, coordinating, facilitating and advocating within the communities and businesses and different things. And I suppose in regards to this experiment, we're helping with the coordination and facilitation and advocating. So like you said, Laura approached me with the funding and applied for a great applicants for it. And I suppose we want to engage in partnerships, which is what we're doing here, raising awareness, engaging in open dialogue for climate, which is what we're also doing here today. So that's Mayo County Council's role in all of this. We're not directly able to reduce everyone's emissions. We can work on which we full accountability for, but then we want to support the communities in projects such as this. So I suppose that's why we're here today. And like Rosarie mentioned, we established the Decarbonising Zone Network because we had such great feedback for applications to be Mayo's decarbonising zone, and in turn we now 10 communities are hugely engaged in climate. Mulroney shown was successful as the DZ, but Louisburg has shown time and time again that they're really engaged and really committed to decarbonising, and I suppose this is why we ended up being the lucky ones for this one. So I suppose just to go into detail more, Rosarie, you actually covered it a bit, but Laura was approached by Dr. Frances Fahy in University of Galway about this, because I think she knew of our work already with the decarbonising zones and how we had such engaged communities, that I think she knew that we would find someone who would be brilliant for this project. And I suppose that was why they approached us in the first place. And I think then Laura thought that Louisburg were ideal for this project because of all the work that already done, which Rosarie mentioned a while ago. But I suppose as well, you've especially done a lot of work on energy. So I think Laura thought it was like a no-brainer for Louisburg to be the partner on this project. And like things like the solar panel, your energy master plan, like all the VR assessments you've already done, I think you're leading on energy already. So it was Laura was like, and I suppose our other motivations for being involved is that we want to continue to learn from the communities and to really support our already engaged communities so that they can continue to do the amazing work they're already doing. And I suppose as well, we want to learn from other sectors, other professionals, other expertise, because we definitely don't know it all and we never claim to know it all. So I suppose these are the kind of events we want to be part of so that we can communities and learn then have a framework to then go to the communities and help them as well, as Rosarie said. I suppose when you're looking at the council, you have to take into account that we have our social housing stock and this is about efficient renovations. So I suppose we're working alongside the housing department, both the central housing department in the Mayo County Council and our municipal district section of the housing to try and get engaged with our social housing residents as well. So that's ongoing. It's tricky, but we're making the connections currently. But I suppose just to give it a bit of background of how the social housing is already going on. This is from Michael Corley, who is a member of the Knowledge Network on behalf of the Housing Department in Mayo County Council. He sends his apologies, he can't be here today, but he just gave me a little bit of a rundown. Obviously, as part of the National Retrofit Plan, the rollout of the Social Housing National Retrofitting Programme began in 2021. And under this, Mayo County Council have 2,500 social housing units retrofitted in Mayo, and there's 35 units in the Louisburg, Clare and Innistree areas. So I suppose their aim in Mayo is to retrofit 100 homes a year. They're just in completion of their first programme, which is in Earl and Castlebar so far. They're trying to do it spread out amongst the municipal districts. We don't have a date for when Louisburg is going to come up, but we're hoping with this project it's only going to build big awareness around here and maybe more pressure for Louisburg to be moved up the list. He did reiterate that we don't know when that date is, so just on that out there, we don't want to put a date, sadly. But I tried to from that, but no. But he said it's a national thing. It's going to be done. It's not that we're going to be done. It's all just, as he said to me, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But it's just good to know that this is the wider picture and that retrofitting of the social housing stock is county-wide and it's going to be done, which is really great to hear and really promising. So I think it's going to help as well in getting the tenants and the residents of the social housing engaged in this, to know that the future is looking good for the housing stock and stuff like that. So I think that's another great reason for all of us to get involved and bring their lived experiences into the project. So I suppose that's it. That's all I have to say. I don't know if that's too much or too little. But we're delighted to be involved, and honestly, these guys, their creativity and their absolute commitment to carbonizing first and then to this project has been like they've just ran with it. And we're delighted that you would love to run with it because it's just great to have these kind of communities out there. And our job is to do is to work with you and we learn from you too. So thanks for having us.
Sorry. Yes. Anyway, hello everybody. What I plan to do is just tell you a bit about climate action and how we got to where we're at. A little bit of history. We don't know why it's not terribly relevant. We started here. I was involved in community futures with Rosarie and some others, and we got an invitation, I think, from Orla to go up to Belmullet. And this would have been early 2018 or maybe very early 2018. And she invited a lot of people up. And we took a bus from Mulrenny with Mulrenny people and Ackle people. And I don't know, there was a big bunch of us on the bus. And we went up to Belmullet. I mean, a great day, tea and cakes and exposure to all sorts of renovations in public buildings. Very, very impressive stuff. And I can't remember exactly, it's so long ago, and the brain's fading anyway, but somehow or other she introduced us to the concept of the sustainable energy community groups. And anyway, there were three of us went up, Austin Francis, Rosarie, and myself. And when we came back, we decided we were going to set up a group here in Goosework. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world. There was a lot of paperwork and backwards and forwards, and it took quite a while. But eventually, in April that year, we set up the SEC, but then getting organised to get a master plan done for the area. That took a long time, and eventually we had our master plan in, I think it was about May or June in 2019. It took a long time to get that together. We got mentors from SEAI, sort of showed us how to fill in forms and things, but there were a lot of forms. Anyway, we got our master plan, and the master plan showed us that on the energy side, if you leave out on the greenhouse gases, that transport and home energy were almost equal in their contribution in our economy. It worked out almost an even split. This was all done on a desk study from the census things. But anyway, transport is a bit of a conundrum. It's not that easy to deal with. So we concentrated on the home energy side. And what we did then was we got some money from SEAI to do the master plan. There was a bit left over. So we started initially doing these building energy ratings. We got an engineer, Colin Brady, did the work for us. He's a Newport man, I think, but he works out across the bar. Anyway, we would recommend him to anybody next to him. But he did the boroughs for us. I think we had 6 houses we did initially. And we also did minor energy audits on public buildings, the churches, the schools, and maybe the Grande Wheel Centre. Anyway, all the public buildings around the place. These would have proper energy audit on a building like this is quite expensive. But we got a kind of a mini energy audit on it, just to give us an indication of where we might look. Anyway, while we were waiting for the master plan, we started doing a bit of work we started doing work initially in the housing association houses here. We got involved there in project managing the upgrade of the housing association houses, and we brought them from a rating of E2 to up to C2, I think. So we saved tons and tons of carbon in the process. What else did we do? Well, we started to try and get the word around the parish, around the locality, about the grants that were available. The grants from SEAI on installation and PV, solar panels and heat pumps. And the council were giving grants for the elderly for doors and windows and upgrading their heating systems. So we were spreading the news as much as we could about these grants and trying to get people to apply for them and helping them to apply for them. Getting the forms from the council, distributing them. And anyway, we were at that. And then COVID came along and it kind of put a little bit of a damper on the thing. But one of the house, this is a kind of the core of house energy. 30% of the energy goes to the roof, 40% to the walls, 10% to the doors and windows, and another 10% due to brass air infiltration. And unfortunately, 20% goes to the floor. Very hard to do anything about that. But the other areas are relatively easy. Obviously, the roof is the easiest one because you're saving 30%, and it's relatively easy to do. The walls are a bit more difficult. Doors and windows, again, it's only the 10%. Quite expensive nowadays to get modern ones. But so we got a lot of work done around the parish before COVID, and even a little bit during COVID. And I think I did up my own house at the time, got the incentive to do it, and got plenty of grants. But I got it up from a D1 up to actually to an A1, and the gross cost was 40,000. I got at least 15,000 of grants, so it was only costing me 25 myself, and I had got inherited a few bob at the time. I was able to cover the cost, so it worth me savings. That was a bit of a look. But anyway, we gave up to a certain extent to cover. There wasn't much we could do. But in 2021, this decarbonising competition came up, and we were contacted by a couple of biodiversity guys that were interested in growing trees and things like that. And they asked us would we get together with them to enter for the competition, the Mayo County Council competition, to become the decarbonised zone of Mayo. And we did fairly well. I think we ended up joining third or something in the competition. Mulranny beat the socks off us, but anyway, beyond that, and when we were going for that competition, we got the idea to invite Clare Island to join in as well, because we thought maybe they'd be going for it, and if the two of us went together, it would make a better impression. So we took in Clare Island. We forgot English Turk at the time. But anyway, we got again, as they said earlier, the other areas of sustainability, like Rosarie mentioned earlier. But anyway, then last year we set up a company. We decided things were going so well, we could actually set up a company. I suppose the main part of it was for corporate governance, if we were getting funding coming in, grants and things like that, but we were hoping to get some money in, and we needed to set up a company. So we set up this Climate Action Municipal Locality. It's a company limited by guarantee. In other words, it's a non-profit organization, obviously. And at the time, then we decided to invite the Irish Turk to join in with us as well. So they have agreed to associate with us, happy to say. So we cover this whole area from the Killery up to the Cambell, including Bay, and down to Bunberga. So it's quite a big area. I think it's 200 or 300 square miles, or 70 square kilometers. But anyway, in the course of the work we're doing now, since we set up that company, we got involved in the microgeneration. Again, we got this idea from a guy in Clare who started down there, spread the word through word of mouth, and ask everyone that you contact to contact everyone they know, kind of a Ponzi type of idea, to spread the idea, getting a number of people together so that you can get quotations and you can get the economy of scale, if you like, if you have a decent sized project. Now, we decided, because we had so much information about the actual cost of these things, because this man gave us all sorts of quotations for every type of installation that he was getting. And so we decided to try and keep the work in the parish if we could. And we had people in the parish who were involved in this work. So we've been working with them, and it's working out very, very well for us. And then, of course, more recently, we've got involved in this general renovations project with the European Union. Richard, I think, I'd like to tell you more about that.
Thanks, Rosarie. I just want to talk about the shared green deal, the overall deal, European deal, a little bit about the Cambridge part of it, which is our part, and then at the end I'm going to talk about the benefits of retrofitting from an emissions standpoint. The shared green deal was originally set up and funded by the European Union under the Horizon 2020 programme. And under this programme, there's 24 experiments like ours set up all over Europe. These experiments are set up under 6 headings, 6 climate action headings or topics. And then the topics are similar to the topics we have in the core: clean energy, biodiversity, circular economy, travel, sustainable food or local food production, and efficient renovations. And under each topic, 4 communities were selected to run experiments for 12 months. The original thing was for 15 months, but we're 3 months into it now, from the time that we applied at the start. And the results of these experiments over the next year will inform EU decisions on the future of climate change. They're going to be, the results of them are going to be used to formulate policy for the next 10 years. Now, the programme is run by a large consortium of organisations, all over Europe, a lot of universities. I think there's 20 universities involved. There's research institutions, there's EU policy making groups, and there's climate network groups. So there's a lot of people, I think 77 groups overall, behind the system. Our application was for efficient renovations, which was the last topic there on the list of 6. And the idea of it was to build knowledge and know-how on renovations, and also to tackle fuel poverty within the communities. And the organisations behind the programme were also anxious that we would look at gender equity, have a good gender balance in our social network group. So when we were putting the group together, we were very conscious of that. But the reason for that is that around Europe, women are more likely to be affected by fuel poverty or by bad housing. And in general, women are not involved in the retrofitting industry. It's the same in Ireland, they're not that much involved in the building industry, so women are not that much involved. So we were looking to get around 60% women in our knowledge network to comply with that, and to make it as successful an experiment as possible at the social level. Our part of the programme is run from Cambridge University, the Anglia Ruskin University in Cambridge, and there's a consortium partners there who are representing the different countries, and we have to meet with them every month. We meet them on Zoom every month. We'll be meeting with them again on the 3rd of July. So every month we report back to them on our progress and what's happening, and maybe look forward to what will happen in the year ahead. As I said, 4 communities were selected under this efficient renovations. Bluesbrook locality, and in partnership with Mayo County Council, were selected as the winner of Western Europe. I believe that one of the main reasons that we won was our partnership with Mayo Council. You know, they were very happy that we were involved with the municipal authority, and the other partners, the other three, were pretty much involved with the municipal authority as well. I think another factor in it was that we had the offshore islands, Clare Island and Stork, in our application. I think that was a factor as well. I suppose that we were probably the westernmost point in Europe. I just back in the end of April, I went to Cambell for 4 days, and I met with the representatives of the other four communities, the other three communities, sorry. So, and these communities are, first of all, the northern part of Europe was won by Vilnius, which is in Lithuania. Eastern Europe was won by Novgorod in Hungary, and Southern Europe was won by Zaragoza in Spain. And we met up there to really to design the experiments, because the people in Cambridge, you know, they have an overall plan for it. We have to look at our local context. We can't design an experiment without looking at the local context. And I suppose one of the things that I took from Cambridge is there's a very wide variation in the local context. In Vilnius, in Lithuania, there's a population of 500,000 people, and all of the buildings there are multi-story, high-rise buildings, Soviet buildings from the 50s and 60s. And so that's what they're doing. They're not dealing with any bungalows or that, and a huge population. Same in Zaragoza, they have a population of 750,000. And again, they have high-rise, multi-story buildings, General Franco buildings. In both of these places, these buildings are privately owned. They're privately owned by the people who live in them, but they're multi-story, high-rise buildings. There's another major difference with Spain, is that Spain's energy poverty is summerish. Whereas for us it's spring, summer, winter. We retrofit the heating, you know, so it's very, very different in that way. So it's winter for us, summer for them. But Novgorod then, which is it's a small community on the outskirts of Budapest. Most of the people, majority of them, work in Budapest. They drive in and out. They live in the area, but their context is quite like ours. Lots of bungalows, lots of single-story, single detached and detached houses. And I suppose the story that I presented to them in Cambridge about our context was that we say, if we look what Jim mentioned from Killeen, Newsbrook, Clare Island, Innistork, to Cambell and out to Lorna, there's about 1,800 houses in that area. And of those 1,800 houses, about 400 of them before 1960. And those houses would be concrete built, stone built, and sometimes a combination of concrete and stone. And they would be generally, the houses that burn turf or coal or oil. So they'd be G-rated houses, the lowest energy rating. So we had about 400 of those houses, and so that was what I presented then. Now the benefits of retrofitting those houses. We know about the energy saving and about putting out drafts and all of that, the energy saving. We also know about the comfort and the quality of life improvements that come from retrofitting. But what I want to just talk for a few minutes about is the benefits from an emission standpoint, because governments, and Lorna mentioned that governments, the Irish government and all the European governments are going to have to look to this housing stock if they want to reduce the emissions or achieve the target emissions for 2030. I don't know if you have the table there. Last year, we had a presentation in the hall, and I put together a table. I'm looking for information that would correlate energy emissions and different energy ratings. There is no table there. So I put together this table myself. I took BR certificates Jim was able to money, Rosarie to money, these such things. And I took the army set that tells you how many kilograms and lots per square metre of your house and year is weighted. Right. And so all the videos, I've taken that, sometimes I got cleans for each and I average. But if you look over here, Jim's house has a 0.9 ton of carbon dioxide per year. And down to the Chile house, 27.9 tons. There's 27 tons of difference between the G-rated house and the A1 rated house. 27 tons. Now, if I take the 400,000 by 27 tons, what I'm talking about being 10,000 tons and 11,000 tons a year. I would say if you brought them up, and not saying that. But when Jim brought his house up from T1, 30 tons of, say 12 tons of carbon dioxide a year, and you do that every year, last 2 years, and you do something else, so it's cumulative. That's the importance of government plans to do. And like I have to say, bring the 400 up, imagine what we say, just in the small park, the West of Ireland, and we multiply that out and see what could be done, but through retrofitting. So I leave it at that and say thanks very much for your.
I'm from Charlestown, which is the other side of Mayo. It's a big county when you're crossing it every day with a van or a truck and what I want to do is dive into the nuts and bolts, a little bit of insulation and a little bit about what we do every day to help people reduce their carbon footprint and increase the energy efficiency of their home. So what we're going to go through today is how we operate as a company. Talk a little bit about the grants. I'll show you an example of a project that we did and the results of that project, which will tie into your table very well, actually, I think, Richard, and highlight some of the long-term outlooks where we see improvements coming along and the deep retrofit. And I give you some ideas then on what to look for when you're talking to people, because it's the homeowners, they're the ones that we need to get in touch with, and they're our primary client base. So a few little ways that we can get in touch with them. We operate, or we look at a house individually and in holistic fashion. So we want to see what is the most appropriate upgrade for a house. Give your 1970s or 1980s bungalow, you're probably looking at cabin wall and attic insulation. That'll have the biggest effect and the cheapest investment. You could have a dormer overlooking Clew Bay that's getting the wind blowing in on top of it, like Rosarie and spray foam or cavity wall insulation or cellulose. So there might be a myriad of different things it takes to solve the problems within the house. Each one is very different. So that's why we have to look at them holistically to get a good idea of what is the best solution for them. We've been in business 12 years, I'm in the construction industry 22 years before that. The downturn in the economy forced me to look at other ways of continuing the business. So we thankfully we just moved into the insulation retrofitting completely, and that's all we focus on. We've about 10 employees, we're SEAI registered, we're SEAI registered and certified for cavity wall and exterior insulation. We're a member of NIAI, which is the National Insulation Association of Ireland. But we focus mainly on Mayo and Sligo. Sometimes we go to Wisconsin. So how it starts, people just inquire, through the phone number, the website. We initially give what we call a phone quote. So somebody wants a quote for insulation on walls, gives your area code, that's all we need, and an email address, and we can send you a quote. So we can actually look at your house, look at the technology we have with this. Look at it from the street, look at it down from the satellite above, measure it every which way, and determine, X amount of square meters of attic insulation, X amount of square meters of cavity wall. bada bing, we have a quote sent out to you. And that gets the ball rolling, it gets people engaged, and just starts the whole process. You know, like we've done within, let's say, within a week. Jim will say probably 6 months, but I would say it's so to just to dig into some of the specific parts of it, cavity wall installation is the one on the left. I don't really want adding installation starting and trying to dry off. That's primarily what we're focused on. So, like I mentioned before, dormer is a great solution for dormer houses, spray foam insulation. That's what's on the image there. Because you want to stop, it's not just insulating, it's stopping the wind. I know Jim's graph showed 10% wind. I would say that's probably realistically in this area, probably more than 30% of your energy is lost through wind because the drafts was fierce. But spray foam getting into your eaves and the crawl spaces and all those hard to reach little difficult places that nobody wants to go, you have to get in there and stop that air from bleeding all over the house and sucking the heat out. So that's of primary importance to us, those type of little details and the likes of that. Another good option in attics is cellulose. Cellulose is a loose fiber insulation made from recycled paper. Paper is shredded, pulverized with fire retardants added to it. It's the oldest insulation on the planet, believe it or not. Somewhere in Pennsylvania around the turn of the 19th century, people discovered by putting newspaper in their attic on top of the ceiling, it actually holds the heat for long, believe it or not. So that developed over time. So it's become one of the most important products that we use for several reasons. Number one, it's Irish made. There's only one company in British Isles making it. They're down in Cork City. We use recycled paper all over Cork and the area. And with the change in pricing and the cost of materials in the last couple of years, the fiberglass and PIO products like the Kingspan and so on have all skyrocketed in price. The cellulose hasn't. He's been able to maintain his prices, so we use that an awful lot. What else was I going to say? Yeah, we use it in attics and timber frame structures. Fiberglass is still a very, very good option, and anybody can buy it. If we went to any builders merchants or builders suppliers, you can see the rolls in there, and it's relatively easy to do. We still use quite a bit of it, but prefer the cellulose. Cavity wall insulation, we use Kingspan EcoBead, it's polystyrene bead insulation, injected into the walls. That's an image of what a standard cavity wall looks like. Yeah. So if two walls built side by side, we fill that little gap that's in the middle with insulation. It's relatively cheap, quite effective. Any houses built in Ireland from the early 70s to today, it uses a cavity wall construction. Standard bungalow, or a semi-D, say a bungalow, for example, 110 square meters, probably talking about a couple of grand to put the walls. So it's not a huge investment, but it's still very, very beneficial. External wall insulation. So this is a totally different thing altogether. This is the public boards of insulation on the outside of the house. I'm going to show you examples now. This images of a house in Fairmarks that we did a few years ago. It was a derelict farmhouse. The farmer that owned it, his son, took it because he couldn't get planners permission for a new house, so they decided to renovate the old house and add on to it instead of building from scratch. So it's by far and hands down bar none the most effective way to insulate a wall, in my opinion. And all the data and feedback we get from clients prove that it is definitely the best way to work. So from these images, you can see the wall has the insulation. So it's a polystyrene board made by Kingspan that's applied to the outside of the wall. You stick it on the wall like you'd stick it on a wall tile, except for really big pieces that they're very soft and light. We have to extend things like the window sills, downpipes, gutters, all that type of thing. So it's very labor intensive, expensive. Yeah, that's it. So this is the house finished. With all it's a brand new render finish on whatever colour you want. We can put onto it. We can highlight details like reveals around windows, pine stones and corners if you want them. It has a very traditional look if that's what you want. We can do a dash finish on it. We can do like a Montcouche type finish as well. And like I said, that's what you want. So that particular house, just to talk about the numbers a little bit and what we did. So we did external insulation on the old portion of the house. So they built an extension at the back as well. We did on that we did the cavern wall insulation. There was attic insulation we did as well, which is a combination of spray foam and fiberglass from what I remember. The BR rating, I believe, was somewhere around an F3. And we got it up to an A3. Now that included a heat pump. We had nothing to do with that, but we did all the insulation work. The client spent $28,000 on insulation only with us. Payback on fuel consumption, we estimated somewhere around 7 to 8 years. And the approximate value uplift, in our opinion, is somewhere between 60 and 90,000. Now, there's a lot of other costs built into it, a lot of other factors with the extension and the internal fit out and so on. But these are numbers people want to see, what's it going to cost? How much am I going to have to shell out? And that's one of the biggest questions that we initially get from clients. So hopefully that's helpful to you. There are grants available from SEAI, just to run through those very, very quickly. And this is based on a detached house, because that's mostly what we come across, and mostly what the scheme will involve are detached houses. For external wall insulation, the grant is €8,000. For cavern wall, 1,700. For attic installations, 800. Just to go back to the previous costing, 28,000. They will get 8,000 of grant back. So that's in fact actually costing them 20. These are little things not to forget, So there's SEAI target, I believe, I'm up to the correction on this, but somewhere around 30% of the cost, which is pretty much in line with what we're achieving here. But the grants are fixed amounts. So where are we going? We see deep retrofit and that type of project being a lot more popular in the future. Cavern wall and attic insulation, there's a huge amount of them done already. There's a lot of contractors doing them around the country. So we're probably fairly close to a point where the low-hanging fruit is almost all picked, so to speak, from a business perspective. So now we're looking at deeper stuff, more expensive stuff, unfortunately, but that's just the nature of it. We're a delivery partner with SSE and Electricity and Kingspan Retrofit. Their focus is, it's a one-stop shop, but it's a very high level of insulation. Heat pumps, eliminate cold bridging, triple glazed windows and doors, intelligent ventilation systems, EV power, and the target is little or no fossil fuel usage. So the idea is, like I mentioned at the beginning, things to look out for in this as well. When you're chatting to in your everyday life, as you go through the middle, people you'll hear things like, "Oh, the house is cold. I hate going to the bog." The house is always so cold in the mornings, especially. It's an interesting one. No snow, frost on the roof where there should be. What does that mean? My house is insulated when it was built. Now, if your house was built 30 years ago, or 40 years, or 50 years ago, you don't have much insulation. I hear the price of oil has gone up. There's nothing I can do about climate change. You hear all these little things. I'm thinking about painting the house next year. How the hell can I say anymore? So, how to react? Insulation makes a massive, massive difference. And I'm not just saying that, it really does. So the feedback we get from talking to clients and reviewing comments and so on is consistently that it's increasing the comfort level, it's saving the money, and we retain the heat for long. There's SEAI grants available. They're better now than they ever were. The grants that I mentioned, the €8,000 for external installation, a year and a half ago that was only 6. For cavern wall installation today, it's on a detached house of 1,700. a year and a half ago that was only 4. So the grants have getting boosted up an awful lot. That's why it makes sense to, it's never been better than it has been before. So I'm obviously going into it, you're contributing to the environment and to the economy. Just by employing us, you're paying wages. There's about 10 people in our group that get paid every week. So that's it. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, I got a question. Damien, sorry. We have 400 houses in our area that are pre-1960 or a lot of them were stone. How can you deal with those kind of buildings with the external insulation? You know, this thing we hear about the stones needing to breathe. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So when stones don't need to breathe, also they're components of the wall. So that the house, the internal house needs to breathe. You can have ventilation. But you won't run a stone. Yeah, external installation on pre-1960 houses is, like I said, by far the best and the most advantageous way to install. If you're protecting the house from getting cold at all, the insulation creates a barrier between the cold outside and the warm environment inside. So it's by far the best way to do it. Unfortunately, yes, it's very labour intensive and it is quite expensive to do. But there's not much we can do with that.
It's very because a lot of people say to stone house you can't do.
Oh, for sure.
Of course you can.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hear that a lot.
But what's the stone is there?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like, how are you going to rush? What happened is stone. It's not breaking.
Well, build up moisture. Sorry.
Yeah, if there's adequate ventilation on the inside, which there has to be. One of the things that the SEAI are very, very proactive on. We're inspected on a regular basis. About 30% of the houses that we do is inspected by SEAI. So there's no shortcuts. There's no trying to pull a quick one. If we're on all the time, and the whole contract, we're with 9% for inspections. Most of the ones we don't pass are just technical paperwork or stuff. But you have to have widening ventilation. It's very important. It's one of the
If you just work for it, because the house the time you get often warm insulation we have external. Upgrade it from F3 to 8.
Yeah.
What if you just plug like a warm insulation on the attic? What kind of improve?
Yeah, so again, just to give you very round numbers, on a SEAI that's a C2 rated house that was probably built in the 90s or the early 90s, and you do cavity wall matting installation, bring it up to probably a C2. So the insulation on its own, unfortunately, doesn't have a massive effect on your BR assessment. The biggest thing that has an effect on your BR assessment is your heating system. So heat pumps are extremely efficient, and that's why they have the single biggest effect on your BR assessment, because they are 400% efficient as opposed to an oil boiler being about a condensing boiler is only about 90% efficient, whereas a heat pump is 400%. So
And you do the
we don't, no, we just focus on the insulation aspect.
If you ever came across, drop ceiling, the high ceilings like that,
Yeah,
and put the ceiling drop down.
yeah,
Do you insulate them?
yeah,
So it's not a problem with condensation, but the benefit of SEAI for them.
Yeah.
Normal solution.
okay.
And he said they wouldn't insulate that, creates a problem, the two ceilings.
Yeah. I can see that it's not impossible to do, but it's not ideal. You want to get the insulation as close to the space as you can. But again, ventilation above the insulation of the space is very important. If the ceiling above it is completely sealed, then you don't have any airflow, I can see a condensation issue. Plus, you have walls, internal walls rising up above And the tops of those walls now is going to get cold. They're above the insulation. So if you could insulate at the highest level, would be the most ideal and ventilate properly there. So insulation on the lower ceiling wouldn't be ideal on the higher ceiling. But the reason the lower ceiling was in is probably because the higher ceiling is in bad shape and probably wouldn't hold it. It's a tough one, that, but there are a few solutions to it.
Damien, can I, oh, sorry, Gavin.
Very good.
Would like to know if there's any progress on insulating the floors, except for, especially in retrofit.
Yeah.
I don't want to dig up a hole, make a hole in the house. Is there any technology advancing campaign?
The JCB have a great machine that there's no silver bullet that you can, and there's no easy way of insulating the floor. It has to come out. Has to come out. Now, if you have a suspended timber floor, but if you had and there's space underneath where we could crawl in underneath, and maybe have 3 or 4 feet of space under that we could actually spray foam insulation on the underside of it. That's about the only option it would be. Apart from that, no, it's taken up. You have to.
But is this something the industry is looking into? Because I'm not the only one that has the problem.
Yeah.
And obviously digging a hole is not feasible in many cases.
It's something we've done. We've done a few deep retrofits. SEAI ran a pilot scheme a few years ago, and we did about 5 of them throughout Mayo and Sligo. And part of them was the floor insulation, so we had to dig out the floors. I see it an awful lot, like with builders. They're, thanks be to God, the industry, building industry, which is a kind of side from us, but it's there. They're obviously building regs have changed a lot, and there's more focus on insulation and doing it better. We do a lot of renovation work as well along with builders, and we see them. They are focused on the likes of that suggest to clients, you really need to take out the floor and put a layer of insulation in there. But there's no target directly to that. As far as the one-stop shops, there is a grant through the one-stop shop to do floor insulation. I don't know much about that. We're the delivery partner for SSE, like I mentioned, and we do the category 1 installation, attic installation, external, and that's as far as we go with that. The minutiae of all the rest of it, we don't get into.
The floor insulation, we've done that recently, not the whole house, just one room. But when we dug down, we discovered that the subfloor was quite high. So there is an egg crate kind of a solution that you can get if you're putting in underfloor heating, but the heating pipes can go through and it looks like an egg box, so that's what we did. What's in that?
If I can get the details.
Yeah.
So,
it's just important to note that we have our first one-stop shop available in Mayo. So we don't have any in the West at the moment. There's 16 registered in Ireland. So Churchfield Home Services based across the line. We're going to start working in the West from the 1st of July. So we have our own one-stop shop, which is really good news. The Churchfield Home Service.
Thanks very much for the introduction. Yeah, so my name is Gavin. I work in the Atlantic Technology University on the Sligo campus, but all of my work is external. So a part of that, a big part of that in the recent years has been working with the SEAI program, Sustainable Energy. That's how I would work with Orla. So we work all over the border west, and then we work with the county mentors in each area. So I'm going to discuss, let's say, the current home energy grants with SEAI. Now, this is a little bit of detail about SEAI. Obviously, this is more to do with the energy program in general, which includes the grant programs as well. So there's been a growing impact through their programs, and you can see there at the moment there's there's over 700 communities on the network. This SEC network. Obviously, Lewisburg has been on the network for years. Now, one term I want to address, one of the few terms, is that term renovation. in Ireland, we tend to use the term retrofit. Renovation is very much the European version of that. And I actually prefer that term. Retrofitting feels like an afterthought, feels like we have to go back and fix something that should have been done in the first place. And as has already been pointed out, when our homes were built in the 1960s, 70s, whatever, nobody knew, but they did what they thought was right at the time. And it was right at the time. So it's not about retrospectively. It is about renovation. It's about bringing our homes now, looking at where we want them to be now and into the future. So I think renovation is a better term. And I'm involved in another union project which is looking at integrated home renovation services. They use that term as well. So I think we'll probably do that. Now, a lot of this has already been discussed there in terms of how we use energy in the home. Most of it is basically the water heating. And the rest then is, putting light in different places. And this again has been discussed. So a typical home will lose its heat energy, mostly to the roof, to the walls, and then there'll be various contributions from the rest. So the benefits and there was a good highlight there of that's the climate action benefits, and I know that's what you're focused on here. But you also have some immediate benefits, and that's been referred to here as well. Get your home upgraded. Okay, it may take some years to pay it back economically on your energy bills, depending how the cost of energy goes, but immediately you'll be more comfortable in your home. So you will save on your bills. And for those of us who are motivated by the environment, you're making a huge impact. You see what Jim has done there in his home. And that's saving. To have that saving in his wallet and he's contributing to, let's say, the national target, probably disproportionately to the rest of us. Then there's the other element there that's been referred to as well, which is the value. A few years ago, the BER search was meaningless. It was just something that had to be done. And it didn't matter what was set up, it just had to be there as you were buying or selling a house or renting a house. It's now really impacting on market value. So the steps, before I get into let's say the grants themselves, the steps that SEAI would advise, which makes sense, first of all, to do an assessment of the home, understand what the problem is. They obviously look at, they have a mantra called fabric first, which is essentially insulating and cutting down drafts first, and then looking at renewables, which is what kind of energy you get into your house. So heat pumps, solar PV, that's what they will promote. That's a little bit more about assessments. If you haven't got a BER, it is a good place to start, but consider perhaps a BER with a technical assessment for a heat pump. And you can go to the one-stop shops and ask for a home energy assessment, and it includes all of that. It's very comprehensive. Now, you will pay for it, but it's a very valuable. Also, there is quite a potential that there might be a BER. Some of you may have a BER in your house and don't know about it. So you can search on the SEAI National BER database with your NPRM. That's the number on your electricity bill. If you enter it in there, you'll find that if there is a current one, that means one that has been done in the last 10 years on that property. You'll find it in there and you'll be able to download it. So obviously, we've covered a lot of insulation there with Damien. And then once you've got a home that will retain heat very well, then how do you get that heat into your home? And the heat pump is currently one of the best solutions. Not the only solution. For some homes, it might never work, but for most of our homes, it will, certainly for any new builds. But this is just, I know you appreciate you can't read this, but I'm sure these slides are going to be. But just in the context of how the SEAI home energy grants are structured at the moment. If you approach a community here, we engage homeowners, and then we introduce suppliers like Damien. And then from that group of homes in any area, we'll find that if you're signposting them to an SEAI grant scheme, you'll find it will fit into one of three categories. You'll have the ones who can't afford the works. So we'll be signposting them to the warmer homes, that's the free energy upgrades. There is a space for them in community energy grants, also called BEC. There is a space for them in there. It's not entirely free, but it is an increased grant amount for energy poor homes. That being said, they still have to go through that community energy grant and get to a very high level, get to a B2 retrofit. On the other end of the scale, there's the ones who have some capacity to invest and they're ready to make that full retrofit. So you'll be directing them to the one-stop shops or community energy grants. And then there's everyone else, which is a lot of us fitting in the middle. So at the moment, there is a section in the SEAI grants called individual energy upgrade grants. So you can select the measures you want. Unfortunately, there aren't as many measures supported, but of the measures that are, the grant amount is exactly the same as the one-stop shop. So that's really where we're going. So you have free energy upgrades. This is, I suppose, probably the largest program in Ireland to combat energy poverty. If you qualify for that, you need to be a homeowner. If you qualify for that, it is a very good group. It doesn't have that many measures supported in it, and it's not unlimited. It's improving. Then there's, as I say, the one, if you have that capacity to make the big investment, the one-stop shop. Now, this is an SEAI slide, so I will say that there is a community energy grant route there as well available to homeowners. And if you're a homeowner, it's going to look exactly the same. And then there's the individual energy upgrades. So I'll go through those in a little bit more detail now. This is the same three strands again, but just it notes here on the left here the measures that are available, the supports that are available in the three strands. And as you can see, the one-stop shop. So it is, you know, if you have that, there's good value in there for you. The warmer homes, those have as many measures, and at the moment, they don't have as many measures either. So the free energy upgrades, and a lot of homes in all areas of Ireland will have been through this. So I'm going to perhaps just focus on some of the recent changes. It's available to homes that were built and occupied before 2006. For the first time now, homes that have been through the programme before can reapply because the measures that are supported under this programme have increased. So you can reapply. So that happened last year. Also in recent years, there's two other categories of energy poverty that have been included here. One is the carers allowance, living with the person being cared for, and the other is the disability allowance for 6 months with a child under 7. So again, you may know somebody in that category, so please advise them of this. It's fully funded through SEAI, so there's no money changes hands. The homeowner doesn't have to pay anything. That being said, the homeowner doesn't get to choose what is done in the home. The process is that you make the application. SEAI will assess the eligibility of that homeowner. So you have to prove that you qualify as being in energy poverty and that you are the homeowner. Then SEAI will send out a surveyor, and the surveyor will determine what measures under this program are appropriate to that property. And then the works will be assigned to a contractor. And eventually the contractor will make contact with you and organise when that work is going to carry out. There is a considerable waiting list. It's advised on the website at the moment that it's 18 to 24 months. I'm hoping that will improve. I know anecdotally that is improving. And recently SEAI have refilled their framework of contractors for the warm. Well, they've retendered their framework of contracts for the warm home scheme. So they're going to increase the number of suppliers on that framework to 50. The one-stop shop service, which made a lot of headlines last year because SEAI were tasked with developing this. They were tasked by the department. There was a lot of pressure to get this in place. So they spent a lot of time last year getting it in place. And it was the press release in the ground were probably too early because press releases came before there was any actual capacity. There was a lot of giving out. Go to the website, there was nothing there. Then there was 2. Then there was 5. So thankfully, what do we have now? 16. And great, there's one in Mayo and going to be operating in the West, which is great. Now, a lot of them are operating nationally. SSE Electricity are all over the country. Electric Ireland Super Homes, I'm pretty sure, are operating all over the country. So they're in demand. There's a lot of demand. So be prepared to maybe make a few calls, keep at them. But in any case, the process here is you make an inquiry. They will offer you, I'm sure most of them will offer you at least a phone consultation to start with, just to ask them for basic questions. Then they'll offer you a home energy assessment. As I said, that won't be free, but it is grant funded to €350. So I can't tell you exactly what they're going to charge. It's a private market, but I would expect to pay at least another 350 euros on top of that. Now, that being said, what you get is you get an up-to-date BER assessment. You get a technical assessment for a heat pump. And you will get then a menu of measures that are required to bring your home to a B2, with the cost against each measure, the grant against each measure, and then the net cost to you. And through the one-stop shop program, you should only ever be paying the net cost. The one-stop shop carries the risk, the rest, and they get that back from SEAI. Okay. Now, don't try and read all this. As I said this to you, generally, SEAI don't print these for publication because they're always subject to change. But what you can see is here you have a list of measures, and it starts with the heat pumps and heating systems. And then you're into your installation. So under the one-stop shop space, you've got kind of the whole suite of installation. You've got ceiling insulation, which is your attic insulation. You've got the rafter insulation, very full, cavity wall, external wall, internal dry lining, floor insulation there, and one of doors. So you've got the whole envelope taken into account. There is also here repair diagnosis and ventilation, so that addresses that as well. And you've got solar PV and the heating upgrades as well. So it's a very considerable investment, it's a very considerable renovation. The differences in scale here you see have to do with detached and investment. So obviously, as I mentioned before, for external wall installation, the attachments again 8,000. It's going down to 6,000 for semi-detached, 3.5 for the entire because it's only front and back, generally speaking, and then 3,000 for a bar. So that's the kind of range of scale. But I'm sure these will go out, so there's no need to try and write them. So then there's the individual energy upgrades. As I said, there aren't many measures supported in this at the moment, but things are always changing. They're always trying to. Also, the guidance from SEAI here, it pretty much says that the homeowner is the project manager. You don't get project management support like you do in the one-stop shop. So you have to determine what's right for you. You may need to start yourself with BER to find out, to get an indication of what measures to focus on. You may not. You know, if you don't have a lot of attic insulation is a good investment. If you've cavity walls and they haven't been pumped, pump cavity wall insulation is a good investment. You don't need an assessor to tell you that. You get to select your own contractor. You get to find them. You negotiate the price with them. You're supposed to do the grant applications, the grant claims, and all that. Now, that being said, and I've been through this route myself a couple of times. Generally speaking, if you find an SEAI registered contractor, they'll work with you through this process. They've been through it several times. It's in their interest that you get the grant approved, that everything is to SEAI's satisfaction, so that you get your claim back and they're not delaying it as well. So you will generally find a good SEAI registered contract will help you. That's a similar table, but as you can see, there's less measures on the left, but these amounts are definitely the same. So what's not on there is probably more important. What's not on there? Floor insulation is not there. Mechanical ventilation is not on there. Air tightness is not on there. The big one that's not on there, windows and doors. Unfortunately, not on there. There's a few others. The project management support, I didn't refer to it, it's at the bottom. That's not there. That's a shame. There's some others. There's no bonus. This whereas there is currently. Okay. Now the other grants that obviously you've available around here as well, and this totally grants. It's a fairly simple process at the moment, and again, a lot of the installers know their way around that process because it's part of this plan. So you can see that it's up to 2 kilowatt peak. It's 900 euros, so you get a max of 800 there, and then another 300. So that's why you keep hearing about the 2,400 as the maximum solar PV grant. There's no grant at the moment for batteries that was removed. So that's that. And then there's the EVs. Now, I know this doesn't fall under renovation. Just a reminder that it's still there. I think for a little while longer. There's talk of it going. Do you have any idea of the date?
It's increasing on the 1st of July.
Okay. So it's still there, so get out today. Then just a reminder, there's probably most relevant here, the home charger grant. Anyone can apply for that now, you don't need to have an EV. So I would suggest anyone looking at any significant electrical works in the house, think about getting this as well. You get a €600 grant against it. It's going to improve the value of property. At some point, somebody's going to call around, neighbour, friend, relatives are going to call, and they're going to need someone to charge. And you can run an extension lead out. It's not a great idea because they heat up. Or you can have one of these, and it's Now, just a reminder on sustainability communities, you probably don't need it here. Lewisburg is a sustainable energy community. The programme is still going. Orla is the county mentor, so if you have any questions around it, talk to Orla, talk to myself. I won't go on about it too much. You're seeing the benefits of it here. And the programme is still structured in this learning plan to stage, and Lewisburg is very much introduced and has been for some time. The community grants, or BEC, still called BEC, even in SEAI, is still there. It changes every year. It's not likely to go anywhere. It's probably the biggest program they have for building retrofits. So it is still going to be in place. I just wanted to get back to some of this European definition and the term one-stop shop, which has become to mean something more in Ireland in the last year. So when we say one-stop shop in Ireland now, we're talking about the SEAI one-stop shop. But there is the European definition of one-stop shop, which again I prefer. It's broader, and the reason I put it up here is that there's nothing to stop an organisation calling itself a one-stop shop. You just can't just call yourself an SEAI one-stop shop unless you meet their criteria. Their criteria are quite stringent. You have to have a turnover of 1 or 2 million. You have to be in business for at least 3 years. You have to have significant capacity. But this European project called Innovate, and they describe here what one-stop shop might do. So they start with a facilitation model. That's simply where you're raising awareness on the benefits of renovation. You're providing general information. You may be providing first advice on what they call the orientation. This is already happening. You're already doing this. You're already at that facilitation one-stop shop. Now, conversely, the downside of that role you don't get paid much for, because you can't share it on. But there is space, I think, here in Lewisburg, and I think with a lot of communities I work with, and I'm working with one in Galway City at the moment on this very proposal, to start building this capacity and to create a commercial service, albeit not for profit, but still a commercially viable service. So I propose here some resources. But let's say the facilitation model here. Say you need a full-time local resource if you're going to have this service going. And again, you have that here, albeit lots on a voluntary basis. You will need some at least part-time technical support for that. Going into the coordination model would be where the homeowner is still coming to you, or the building owner is still coming to you, and you're perhaps helping them coordinate or draft their requirements, and then going out to the suppliers. You're still providing a service. That's essentially when you get into a project management service. And for that, we're going to need some additional admin and some commercial industry. The all-inclusive model, then, that's your one-stop shop model that SEAI need to follow. But I think there is room here in Lewisburg and in Donegal. So that's me.
Can I ask you before you leave? I noticed there with the one-stop shop, the whole list of items that were available, and then you went to the individual, and there weren't as many. Why is there a difference there?
So I would ask SEAI the same question I have. So with windows and doors used to be available on the individual class. What they found was then it became a windows and doors grant. And that windows and doors alone is not, I'd say, as good value in terms of kilowatt hour saving for SEAI on their budgets. So they're good.
Now, can I just say something? Personally, the energy rating is based on the amount of kilowatt hours that are expended in keeping the house warm and running the house. If you put some solar panels on the roof, you're getting 3 kilowatt hours from the sun. And you can actually stack those, presumably, the amount of kilowatt hours that you're using in the house. So that should actually hugely improve your power, depending on the amount you put up there.
Yeah.
And is that the case? Yeah.
I don't know, none of me yours.
Okay.
Anything you want to say?
I say in theory what you're saying is correct.
I'm not sure exactly how they take that into account.
Nothing to go for. Robert said, the pennies with this here, you're an engineer. Can you put through this back and comments on it?
I think the question you're asking again, there's kilowatts per duration which people can have in the roof. Get that off your bill. Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm just saying, I'm saying that the BER, it basically states how many kilowatt hours you're using in a year or per square meter or whatever that the house is using. But if you're actually bringing in your own electricity, your own energy from the sun, can you not subtract that from the amount the house is using? And will that not therefore improve your BER rating by that amount?
I think you improve your power rating by using renewable energy, by the installation of panels. But it's how you use that energy to benefit the house itself. Obviously, you can use it in batteries. But the most direct way is to have appliances operation on the energy that's created. If you have appliances operating at that time, be it lights or something like that, that's energy you save. You don't pay for that. You generate that on the roof.
So I'm saying,
You use it straight away. When it isn't always the case,
sorry, I mean, obviously, if you're going to put in solar panels, you're not going to get the value of it.
I don't think that's not always the case. I mean, batteries are one option. You can also sell it back to the grid. And there's still an option of that, where you can get a reduction in your kilowatt hours by selling back your energy.
Yeah. No, my question was, should this energy you're putting in not improve your BER rating?
It does improve it. It does improve that, but there's two contributors to the rating. Kilowatt hours for me, and the CO2 is the CO2. So the CO2 is much more associated with how you heat the home from process to the person that you don't really change the solar
It's just, the heat recovery ventilation.
Yes.
If people did get their houses insulated, just say, for example, about giving quotation for wrapping a house, to extend more insulation. Now, to do that, we had to put in a 4-inch opening in the kitchen for the ranges, and we had to put 3-inch holes in the wall in every bedroom. And I can imagine if say the way in here, it's going to be how you wind once all your heat's going to come out through that. Now I'm just wondering about the heat recovery system could eliminate those big vents.
It would, it's much more controlled.
Is the brands for it?
So under mechanical ventilation, it would be that. So it could be mechanical heat recovery. There's another one that's maybe more popular in retrofit, it's called pneumatic control ventilation. So it has less internal light. There's still a mechanical extract from ventilators. But your inlets they're passive, they have a membrane that reacts to the humidity. So when we're in the home, release one thing. There's the inlets react, and then they open up once there's a certain humidity in the air, and fresh air is drawn in. The extract senses change in pressure, starts to draw air out through. And then once the humidity drops again, those flow. So you don't need as much internal pipe conduction as you do with mechanical heat recovery ventilation. But at the moment, I don't know if there's any demand control ventilation with a heat recovery element in it. So it's a good system. It's less work, but it doesn't have that bit of.
I think the companies so small. I think the most things in mind is if when people don't have these things that powering through the winter and they have to pack towels. You know, people are rolling up towels and into these beds. You know, there'll be 5 years in the house. You know, spending maybe 28,000 on get the house thermal insulation done. And just, I think there should be more emphasis put on. It's a challenge to a lot of people to get their houses wrapped.
Do you have any advice on that ventilation?
No, I agree with what Richard said, and it's not speaking for us very much. Daily basis, it's one of the things that get wired straight back out. Unfortunately, as a contractor works, we want to you have to provide for adequate ventilation in the house. The most traditional way to do that is a 4-inch pipe through the wall. Now, if you're looking to change the windows, vents, they're a little bit smaller, and then that's the frame. That's an option. But mechanical ventilation is an excellent option. When it comes to the price tag, so.
The ones on the window frames, can they be retrofitted too?
Yeah. There are two now in bed because wall vents, generally speaking, it's not just fresh air, but you have a health and safety issue where carbon dioxide build up where there's slow so that to be considered as well. But, numerous times we've seen, like Richard says, houses rolled over. Just it's different for it.
Thanks very much. Thank you all for this creative questions. And thank you, Seamus, who arrived. Seamus is our local contractor who's doing the 3D metals for us. So we're awfully lucky here in Lisbon that we were able to get somebody local to take on these projects. And not alone did he do that, but he took on somebody else a trainee to help with the extended amount of work that he got from it. And arising from that, another person to do the roof installations or the groundworks. So it has created employment in the area and it has kept the investment within the area. So we're grateful to you, Seamus, and to your workmates and other businessmen that are locals. We really appreciate it. That was one of our main aims in the beginning. If we could keep this local, it would add value to the work being done in the area. And to everyone who has attended here today, thank you very much. We're open to the general public now, but it doesn't appear as if there's anybody coming in. But if there is, we might just hang on for a while. We'll serve some refreshments now in a few moments, and once I get the water boiling again. And thank you, Gareth, for all the work you put into this.
Oh, yeah.
Should have seen him today here around 1 o'clock. It's 2 lovely boys. And he just looked at me and said, I hope you don't mind my voice being here. I like your voice. And I said, absolutely not. And we were so thrilled to have him here. But it's not easy. He tries to do his fatherly duties and our jobs at the same time. So we know the pressures are under. Thanks a million, Gareth. Thank you.